and their development are critical for nation building. Without them, there is no creativity. Without creativity, there is no development. Sharing ideas and developing your points in a logical and sequential manner are among the best ways to instigate a learning environment where our people are set thinking. As we do our part to empower this nation with accurate, reliable, and timely information, we are providing the opportunity for our people to speak on any topic. To be considered, you must identify your thesis statement or topic sentence and develop your point. It is expected that access to this information will result in greater political and civic engagement. Our first guest on Speaks is political scientist Dr. George Belle. This is Dr. George Belle Speaks. He begins by looking back at the Republic 1 year after. He concludes that
1 year into the Republic has demonstrated for me that we'd made the right decision to go to the Republic a year ago. That if we had hesitated then, it would have been consistent with the hesitation that has frustrated making that movement for all the years since independence. So that is like 50 years plus. Because I think the idea of the Republic would have been there from the very start, but it would have been calculated that the time was not right. And that issue went on right up until last year. And we just so happened to have a political leader, that is Mia Motley, who more or less said is that she would take the plunge and that we should go to the Republic. Now, I think that she might have had certain question marks in her mind at first because there was a discussion that was taking place in the society, especially on the question of the Constitution, that you should have a Republican Constitution in place before you went to the position, the status of a republic. Now, I argue from last year that that was problematic because you did have a constitution in place. The existing constitution was not being thrown out. We were not in a condition of the breakdown of our political system. We were not convening a constituent assembly to establish a new constitution. We had a constitution in place, but that constitution carried within it an anachronism, which was that we said that it was a constitution for an independent country, but yet the head of state was the head of state of another country, and that country had been our colonial power. We therefore, I think, should have, and we did, establish the best route at a practical level to achieving the goal of Republican status by removing the element in the existing constitution that prevented you from being a republic. And when you brought it down to its essence, the source, it was that we had this head of state who was from a foreign power. And the best way to deal with that was to remove, in our case, the British monarchy. And that could be done by an intervention in the existing constitution and the removal of those sections of the constitution that define the British monarch as our head of state and as the ultimate executive authority in our political system, even though we recognize that our prime minister was, according to that system that we had, the basis from which executive operations were carried out. We also had a representative head of state in the Governor General. But if we took out the sections in the Constitution that described the political role of the British monarch and we replaced it by something that was not a monarchy, which is what we did, you immediately had a republic. That is all that was required.
We will now have the installation of the President-elect of Barbados, and that will be done by the Chief Justice of Barbados, Sir Patterson Cheltenham. The President-elect will take the oath of allegiance to Barbados and the oath for the due execution of the office of President as administered by the Chief Justice.
I, Sandra Prunella Mason, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Barbados according to law, so help me God. I, Sandra Prunella Mason, do swear that I will well and truly serve Barbados in the office of President, so help me God.
Once we carried out those amendments and established that the head of state would be a president and that president would be a Barbadian and not the British monarchy, then you had your republic.
What about any major changes during that period, if any? And what is of real significance to our people?
We have had that, and that the system, the society has survived. The most that I see people criticizing is that they didn't see anything change. Well, that's precisely what you were saying, that nothing of such significance would be involved in terms of change. That what you were doing was essentially reorganizing the Constitution so that the element of a monarchy would not remain, and that monarchy would not be a British monarchy. So we don't have a monarchy, and the British monarchy has been removed, and therefore we have a republic. And once we follow that and we recognize that, then that is what has changed, and that is what is significant. So I think that Barbados could pat itself on the back here, that Barbados, by doing what it has done, and by moving to Republican status, it impressed a number of territories in the Caribbean that had come to satisfy themselves with the status of being a liberal democratic monarchy, a parliamentary monarchy, even in the independent stage of their constitutional development. That they recognized it was an eye-opener, a refreshing eye-opener to say, you know something, the decolonization process is not ended, you know, because some people were becoming satisfied with the fact that they'd got independence, quote unquote, and that the political system was stable and was in place without any question mark. Barbados raised the question by going to the Republic that the decolonization process still had to be completed. And suddenly, countries that were fairly self-satisfied recognized that this was no longer a comfortable place to be. I think particularly this is outstanding in the case of somewhere like Jamaica, because Jamaica always felt that it was ahead of the rest of the Caribbean, especially ahead of Barbados, in terms of what could be political system reform and so on. So I think it was a serious political shocker for the Jamaican people to see Barbados proceed to Republican status, because they had come for various reasons to be at comfort with saying that they were ready to become Republican, but they didn't know how they would get there. Because the usual problem that would hold back a lot of the Caribbean, the issue of requiring special support within Parliament to get the reform, the change. That is to say, you have entrenched clauses and so on in the Constitution in relation to changing the status to that of a republic. meaning that in some cases you have to have a referendum with a certain percentage of support and so on. That was enough to say we can't go down that road because we're not going to be able to make it, which is to do with the problematic that is associated with referenda. It's very difficult to win a referendum with an opposition politics that is going to take advantage of embarrassing the sitting government, because it is quite easy to find negatives in a part of whatever question you pose to people in relation to the referendum. So they don't have to be against the Republican status. They just have to be against something that you are doing in relation to proceeding to that end. And once you get that rolling in the population, in the electorate, the result is almost inevitably a majority negative vote. And you cannot get past the requirements of the referendum for a positive decision. The Jamaicans have shown that explicitly by saying, and P.J. Patterson, the former Prime Minister, has declared that openly. You have to have agreement between the two parties, the Jamaican Labour Party and the People's National Party, both of whom have said that they want a republic. But they had a knowledge and an understanding that if either one of them proceeded to a decision to say, let us proceed to the republic, that the other would take advantage of it politically to score political points. And consequently, it would probably end up, for the reasons that I just gave, as a negative. So you don't go down that road because that is a political embarrassment and it can be costly in the long term as well. Jamaica has the bitter experience of the person who had led Jamaica right up to the point of independence, calling a referendum to decide on whether Jamaica should leave the Federation, and on that basis then proceed to independence alone. And the person that led that is Norman Manley, the father of Michael Manley, lost the referendum and then lost the government. And the opposition person, who was not as strong a nationalist as Norman Manley, became the first Prime Minister of Jamaica. That is Alexander Bustamante, who led the Jamaican Labour Party. So they have that as a recurring memory, which tells them that is a risky route to go. So P.J. Patterson has come up with a solution that you have the agreement and then you proceed. And that probably will become a model for other territories, because we already saw the problem with referenda in places like St. Vincent. And I'm sure that there are other territories that will have similar problem in proceeding to Republican status if they have to pursue by constitutional requirement a referendum, and it would inhibit them in relation to going forward. So if it is almost like if Jamaica can do what P.J. Patterson is suggesting and it works, it would at least indicate now to a number of other territories that they could probably use that as a way to get around the constitutional issue of requiring a referendum. And Barbados could say that it started that ball rolling, precisely because Barbados did not require a referendum in terms of its constitution. And all those people that are saying that we didn't do it the right way and so on, we did it as our constitution allowed us to do it. That our constitution said by 2/3 majority we can change the constitution. We had the 2/3 majority in place, and we changed the constitution, and we got Republican status. The others have a referendum problem, but they are not that unsophisticated, in my view, that they cannot follow the P.J. Patterson proposal. So I think that is another outstanding feature that has developed in the year since we announced that we were going to republic. The rest of the Caribbean saw Barbados get Republican status. They saw us do it in a very dignified and sophisticated way. I think that was very impressive, the way that we did it. The way that we roped in the now President King Charles, as when he was still Prince of Wales, and showed how he came in with horses and left in a car. That was a dramatic demonstration of what had taken place. And of course, we had the military context in which the flags were changed in a formal and dignified way.
The significance
Yes.
of the occasion.
Changing of the order.
Yes. Simultaneously, as the all colors are marched off the parade, the Queen's standard is lowered.
I said then that in order to use the opportunity presented to us by the change to a republic, to use that opportunity to review our constitution, that we should seize that moment. But we should seize it with maturity, not with a view that it was required to shift up everything, because for one thing, that is not really necessary, and secondly, it would be an immature approach to what was required, because you needed to concede, even if the constitution came from the former colonial power in its main respects or characteristics. We had to recognize that it was the result of human political struggle, human political dynamic over centuries. And it is that struggle over centuries that gave to that constitution its sophistication. Now, it is true that there will be aspects of it that we will not be comfortable with. But those are the things that we could then address and adjust. But many of the things that are present in the Constitution as it is inherited from the colonial power are desirable in conducting a political system in a sufficiently sophisticated way that it will not collapse easily, it will not break easily, and it will be able to handle significant amount of difficulties, challenges, crises that might arise without it having been explicit on each one of those, because you cannot foresee them. A lot of them you would not be able to foresee, but you have to have a document that is sophisticated enough in its language and in its thought that it can address, accommodate, and survive engagement with whatever the problems are. And that is what we have inherited, as much as it would have come from the colonial power. And we need to be careful not to be so thin-skinned as to say that because it came from Britain, that therefore we can't take this and we can't take that, and therefore we're going to have to change everything, which is going to be an extremely difficult or impossible task anyhow. And what we do is that we recognize that we have something that would, in fact, help us to engage with a sustainable political system, and one that will be able to survive.
Now, as it relates to the Constitution and the process of its reform, Dr. Belle is resolute in his belief that if the nation had adopted another approach, we would not be a republic today.
We can look and see how long it is taken to review the Constitution. And again, it's something that was suggested last year, that if we had proceeded to seek to change the Constitution in too extensive a way, that we would not yet be a republic. I have seen recently advertisements requesting people to deal with certain themes in the existing constitution with the object of reviewing and possibly reforming. And there's a suggestion that this will be going on up to June 2023. And it didn't suggest that it was be finished then, but that it will still be going on at that time. So that is showing you how long it would take to, I would consider, effectively deal with the question of a new constitution. And I don't know if that is going to start, people didn't notice it, or if people are going to start to say, no, how come be waiting that long? But I think that to wait that long is to be wise, and I think that is it is in fact a confirmation that we had to be minimalist at the beginning, and then we had to look at detail in as practical a way as possible for the longer term. And then when we do that, we would have succeeded in establishing a constitution that will be worthy and that will be able to address the development of Barbados for the longer term.
We do look forward to the new constitution. This has been Dr. George Belle Speaks. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. We'll be back next week at the same time.
It is time. Oh yes, it's time. It is time for the new republic.
Now's the time. Oh yes, the time is the time for the new republic.
So let us all get together. Yes, let us build one another as we build our new republic. Barbados, truly yours and mine. We shall leave no one behind. Barbados, our new republic. Come, let us join one another, every sister, every brother, as we build our new republic.
We, the people of Barbados, in unity of hearts, hands, and minds, now pledge ourselves, our commitment, loyalty, and purpose to this, our beloved Barbados. Guided by the Almighty, we honor our history, our ancestors, our forefathers, the architects of freedom, democracy, and independence, and every loyal son and daughter wherever you may be. And with firm resolve and in one voice, from this day and forever, declare Barbados a parliamentary republic.